Well, talking about the NSE above that 4,000 psychological level. Now, the question here is, will this upward momentum be sustained?
Well, good afternoon. It's probably a fair question, given where we've come since the beginning of the year. It's probably a fair question if you're looking at some of the valuations at the moment. The reality, however, is that we believe that there are at least two structural elements that should continue to feed this. One is a broad-based reappreciation of some of the shares that have tanked in the past, and also a structural reallocation into equities. Our forecast actually for year end is between 4,200 and 4,400.
Looking at the sector breakdown within the NSE 20, which sectors would you be recommending right now?
Well, if you're trying to play the overall market upswing or upbeat, if you want, it is probably fair to say that any sector could have something to offer. But we're still sitting on a very concentrated market. The top 20 market values would account for about 90% of the overall index. So perhaps it's not all about the usual suspects, the banks, of course, some of the consumers, and some of what we see as proxies to the Kenyan economy going forward. Maybe the next 10% do actually have something to offer. Some are relatively lightly leveraged or not at all. Some have very strong growth, and obviously as well very strong dividend yields, especially in an environment where rates have come down quite significantly.
Let's look at the Kenyan shilling at this stage, looking at 85 at this stage. What is your outlook for the Kenyan shilling going forward, given the fact that we have the central bank continually coming into the market to perhaps shore up the shilling at this stage?
Well, our view on the Kenyan shilling remains one of stability, or at least a currency that is bound to be range bound, so to speak. From a macro perspective, there is very little that has changed, or very little present at the moment that would suggest that things could point to a more volatile shilling. So that actually only emphasizes a macro environment that should enable us to see some form of upswing in corporate earnings in the next maybe 12 to 18 months. Which makes equity markets even more attractive going forward.
And what do you make of all this central bank intervention? We had them in the market today mopping up about $152.67 million. Well,
it is probably part of the course now that the central bank should come in. What matters to us from an investment perspective is that we remain in a broadly stable environment, and I think it's contributing to that.
And Marcel, looking at the foreign investors who are currently pushing the NSE 20 upwards at this stage, what kind of participation are you seeing from foreign investors going forward? Is this a play within equities, or could we perhaps see them move into the fixed income market?
Well, our view as a house is that the upside in the fixed income space, certainly in Kenya, is relatively limited now. And that's also why we keep pushing for equities. If you are looking at an environment where Africa, or the appetite for Africa is growing, the appetite for frontier markets is growing, then it makes sense that foreign investors would keep playing a key role in the Kenyan market. But from where we stand, and when it comes to asset reallocation into equities, we believe that the key here is really with domestic institutional investors and their trustees as they perhaps speed up the reallocation into equities, and this time is as good as any, and time is actually ripe for equities.
And looking at the equities, you did touch on getting into the banking sector as well as the consumer side of things. So when you look at the banking sector, which are some of your stock picks within that sector?
Well, the sector offers a broad range of profiles. You could have some very defensive ones if you want to sort of focus on perhaps potential downside in the near term. If you accept that you could see some nervousness around the elections. But you still have some very strong structural and growth stories as well. And overall, I think it is important to focus on capital strength and balance sheet strength at this stage in picking out any of the banks.